Olá, ¿cómo estás? Estoy bien, me llamo Rusia. Hoy quiero leer contigo toda la sintaxis de NumPy de la documentación de la biblioteca. Vamos, mis amigos o amigas y programistas y ingenierías. Vamos. Bueno, cierto, todo depende de ti, creo en ti. En the array, shape, dtype, buffer, offsets, class NumPy and the array shape, the type float, buffer, none, offsets, strides, none, order, none. Parameters for the new method see notes below. Shape, the type, buffer, offset, strides, tuple of integers, order, optional, sf arrays, zeros, empty, d type, numpy type, and the array notes, new shape, d type, initialization, and the array t date, d type, flex, flat, imaginary part of the array, imac, real size, item size, and bytes, and dim, shapes, strides, c types, base, all, any, argmax, argmin, arc partition, arc sort partition. I hope that it's pronounced this way. We went somewhere else. Okay, arc partition, sort, sorted, set field, set flex, reshape, back again. Arc partition, arc sort, ast type, copy of the array, cast to a specified type. Array specific type, byte swap, choose, clip, compress, complex conjugate all elements, conjugate, copy, conjugate, copy, prod, return the cumulative product, sum, diagonal, dot, dumps, fill, flatten, get field, item set, max, mean, new byte, order, non-zero, partition, prod, ptp, put, ravel, repeat, reshape, precise, round, sort, sorted, set field, set flex, sort, squeeze, std, sum, swap, access, take, 2 bytes, 2 file, 2 list, 2 string, trace, transpose, var, view, and array all, and array any, argmax, argmin, arc partition, arc sort, as type, order k, casting unsafe, as u bok. Let's hear it how it pronounced, as u bok, how it will be. Seobok, d type, order, casting, seobok, copy returns array underscore t, complex warning, examples, x an array 1 2 2 5, type integer, byte swap, in place, out, and u byte, order, byte swap, choose, clip, return an array whose values are limited to min, max, or 1 max, or must be given, refer, compressed, condition, axis, none, out, none, method, conjugate, complex conjugate, all elements, return the complex conjugate, element wise, copy, order c, copy to, order, notes, examples, prod, sum, numbers, sum, diagonal, dot, examples, dumps, value, flatten, ravel, flat iterator over the array, return flat array, get field, parameters, d type, offset, item, arcs, returns, item set, arcs, max, mean, new byte, order, new array, non-zero, partition, axis, kind, order, partition, arc partition, sort partition, prod, ptp, put, ravel, repeat, ravel, return a flattened array, equivalent function numpy, ravel, and the array, and the array reshape, NumPy reshape, resize, new shape, ref check, value error, resize, examples, round and the array, sort sorted, NumPy sort sorted, set field, get field, sort and the array, sort, arc sort, leg sort, sorted, partition, squeeze std and the array sum, swap access, take 2 bytes, to file, to go, to list, square, to list, to string, trace, transpose, out, and the array t, and the array reshape, transpose, and the array var, and the array view, view, sum d type, and the array subclass, sub d type, view type, and the array subclass, indexing arrays, array indexing, and offset, sum, ski, and key a, itemize, sum, and dj, mathlab, addressed, stride, used in C for trunk, contiguous, single segment, memory layouts, memory block, contiguous, self shape, self size, index, self strides, relaxate strides, checking, relaxate strides, debug, self strides, self it, itemize, item size, array attributes, hd array flexor, and the array shape, and the array strides, and the dim data size, item size, and bytes base, nodes flags, writable, the array set flags, c contiguous, f contiguous, own data, write label, aligned, write back if copy, update if copy, func, f contiguous and not c contiguous, for f or r c, f contiguous, c contiguous, behaved, carry, array, shape, and the array reshape, similar method, strides, numpy leap, stride, tricks, as strided, and dim data size, item size and bytes, many things, data types, objects, and the array d type, returns, non-d, examples, x, d type, and the array t, and the array real, and the array imac, and the array flat, and t, c types, and d t, and the array t, real, n, p, sqrt, squirt, flat, flatten, flatter, c types, numpy, c types, sleep, data, c types data, c type shape, c type strides, c type data s, c types shape s, object, c types s, object, array interface, array struct, python side, the array methods, and the array c type, and the array item, and the array to list, and the array item set, to string, 2 bytes, to file, dumps, s type, byte, swap, copy, view, get field, set flags, fill, reshape, resize, transpose, swap access, flatten, return a copy of the array collapsed into one dimension, flatten, ravel, return a flattened array, squeezed, take, put, repeat, choose, sort, arc sort, partition, take, sorted, non-zero, compress, condition, access out, kth, partition, kind, order, access, kind, out, mode, values, kth, offset, access 1, access 2, access out, keep, dims, initial, argmin, argmax, min, max, clip, ptp, conj, around, trace, sum, min, var, std, prod, com, prod, all, any, lt, le, gt, ge, q, and e, self equal value, non-equal value, larger than, larger equals, equal, greater or equal, return self value GEGTLEAT bool, neck pos abs invert, pos neck minus self plus self abs invert add sub mal true div floor div mod pow power L shift right shift return R shift R shift left shift and or XOR return self value or add sub mal true div floor div mod self value L short pow R shift and or XOR and the array pow array function ROP I add I sub I mul I true div I floor div I mod I pow L shift I L shift self I mod return self I L shift I right shift I and I or I XOR I add I sub I mul I true div I floor div I mod I pow I'll shift IR shift I and I or I XOR matmul return self value matrix separators add and add equals were introduced in Python 3.5 following PEP 465 and the add operator has been introduced in NumPy 1.10.0. Further information can be found in the matmul documentation. And the array copy, deep copy, matmul documentation, copy, deep copy, reduce set state, copy, deep copy, deep copy, reduce set state, version shape, d type is for to run raw data, new array wrap, new array wrap, and the array len, and the array get item, set item contains len get item, set item contains int float complex, and the array int float complex return string values, wrapper scalars, wrapper built-in scalar types, bytes, true bool, date time delta 64, date time 64, float complex bytes, int complex related Python time, array scalar type, inherits Python 2 only, yes, no, scalar int type does not inherit from the int built-in under Python because the int is no longer a fixed width integer type. Generic bool object number, flexible character, void, str, Unicode, complex floating CSI and GLE, complex clone float, long float, unlong float, C-long, okay. Int C, short byte, int UINTC, U short, U byte, unsigned unsigned integer, signed integer, floating, complex floating, void, character, inexact integer, inexact integer, okay. Integer number, generic, signed integer, byte, short, int C, int numpy int tp, numpy int 64, long, unsigned integer, byte, unsigned integer type, compatible with C unsigned char, numpy u short, numpy uintc, uint, numpy character code L, Linux x86-64, u long, numpy on this platform, numpy inexact, numpy floating, numpy half, numpy float 16, numpy single, double, x equals o, slash numpy double, long double, complex floating, C single, character C double, NumPy, clone double, character code G, NumPy bool, date time 64, time delta 64, object, character code, flexible bytes, str, bytes void, code, scalars, uint 8, uint 16, uint u integers 32, u integers 34, int p, types numpy, int long character code, int p, uint p, float 16, float 32, float 62, float 96, float 128, complex 62, complex 128, complex 192, complex 2056, float complex, long float, C le complex, C float, long complex, C long float, string Unicode. Attributes, flex, shape, generic attributes, array priority, NPI scalar, the integer value of flex, array protocol Python site, generic T, flat, IMAC, real, D type, base, item size, data, and dim, stride, shape, flex, T, array interface, array struct, array priority, array wrap, flex, shape, strides, and dim, data size, item size, base, D type, real, IMAC, flat, T, array interface, array struct, array priority, array wrap, data type objects, byte, swap, squeeze, array wrap, array reduce, set state, set flex, array squeeze, byte swap, reduce, set state, set flex, data type objects, byte, little, and ntbt type, alignment based, byte order chart, description of the data, desker, fields, dictionary, flex, dictionary of named fields defined for this data type, or non-flex, subject boolean indicator with this D type contains entire contact objects in any field or subtype, D type, i.e. align data structure is built in, is native, item site, key and metadata, names, and dim nums shape, sub D type. New byte order, D type, new byte order, return a new D type with a different byte order, changes, import sys is swept DT, native swept code sys, or and DT type, entities, attributes, arguments, swept DT type, new byte order, swept DT, swept native DT, and PDT type, new byte order, B, more, L, less, and BT type, order, float, and PDT type, and P int 32, and PD type, and P complex 1 to 8, 3, 30-bit or integer, number in exact, floating, complex, floating, integer, signed, integer, unsigned, integer, character, generic, flexible, void, integer, bool, float, complex, bytes, structure, buffer, str, void, object, skrt, and PD type, question mark, boolean, signed boolean, unsigned byte, integer, unsigned integer, floating point, complex floating point, time, delta, date, time, Python, object 0, terminated bytes, not recommended, Unicode, string, raw data, C16A25, U25, string, and PD type, field name F2 containing a 32-bit floating point number, type strings, flexible D type, item size, fixed D type, shape, type strings, field name, field D type, field shape, names, formats, offset, styles, titles, item size, field 1, field 2, base D type, new D type, type, kind, char, num, str, kind, D type, floating boolean, signed integer, unsigned integer, floating point, time, delta, date, time, object, byte, string, Unicode, void, DT, D type, field F8, I4, and PD type, float, char, npd type str, npd type float, name item size, and npd type and np integer float 64 1 2 1 2 3 4 grades names straights and the type native little and endian big endian applicable endian. How to translate it? Let's find out. Endian, denoting or relating to two systems of ordering data in which the most significant unit is put either first or last. Endian, applicable. I hope that's applicable. Endian, applicable byte order. Fields, get field and the array set field names sub d type shape sub d type example numpy sub d type float numpy npd type d shape npd type I423 boolean indicating whether and d type has object flex has object indicating whether this type d type contains any reference counted objects in any fields or sub d types is built-in integer indicating how this d type relates to the built-in d types is native boolean indicating whether the byte type native to the platform description data type alignment bytes of this according to the compiler base d type base element sub arrays regardless of their dimension or shape has object flex pointer item is pointer needs unit needs pi pi use get item use set item examples is built in is native description example alignment base metadata warning and d type new byte order reduce set scale set state set scale reduce set state d type d and the array get and the array got new things in Python basic slicing and indexing example the basic slice style and theorems entropy and the array int 1 into new axis x1 to 3 1 to 3 slice none and the result in the one I am int np array and array is shown and showed combining advanced and basic indexing example and boolean array indexing example x np array array row sum columns rows np and new axis columns new items detailed nodes get item and the array set item x index error data type and the array field name record array field name good book np zeros d type np integer iterating over arrays flat indexing single array iteration and p arrange reshape and np arrange np and deter and numpy reference np and import numpy and deter and p zeros and deter lines flex iterator model and array reshape flex it finished while not it finished it multi-index multi-index np and deter iterating as a specific data type np arrange std in standard in line 1 in model np and deter opd types operation d types options opt flex buffered most recent call last buffered np arrange buffer to read write same kind most recent call last model np arrange np and deter print this percentage d 2 and percentage and 2 dots and operands could not be broadcast together and let's translate it One moment, двоеточие in Russian, it means colon. Colon, 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 percentage D colon, percentage D, percentage X, Y, and trace back most recent call last iterating with known as for X, Y in IT, return IT operands, return sum and D tier flex op flex sum plus entropy Gauss distribution distributed for X, Y, Z and picture IMAC numbers and the array and P and D tier flex opened flex op X of flex read-only IT operands NP sum result IT operands return access list op access read-only flex axis to axis array and dim IT and P and deter return IT operands A and P arrange reshape sum squares P access to access list bound check bounce check np and array and size double value check information operands reset xr er client check sum squares client squares sum squares and p sum squares and arrays subclasses standard array subclasses special attributes and methods array ufunc method inputs quarks keyword arguments and function method and array ufunction type error array function not implemented type error then the array if you define array function and the array operation mixing and the array function and types function the type args and dict quarks array function and return not implemented handled e subclass for t in types return not implement handled function implements and p concatenate means concatenate сцеплять concatenate type broadcast implementation of broadcast for my array object numpy array function array finalize array prepare array wrap array priority array d type matrix objects matrix t matrices objects matlab style return matlab style syntax where spaces separate columns and semicolons spaces separate rows matrix objects and it is
single quotes
semicolon and we have it also. What is it? Semicolon, separate columns and semicolons, separate rows, space separate columns, returns the complex conjugate transpose or of self as an and array, return parameters, return transpose, get h, get matrix h, examples read none, matrix I, numpy lean alk error singular matrix if self is singular examples parameters property matrix A returns red and the array self as an and the array matrices as matrix B matrix numbers object I dict G dict data D type copy data copy D type data array matrix A1 flattened ND array. A, return a self ND array object as flattened. H, return the complex conjugate transport of self. Return the multiplicative inverse of invertible self. IT, returns transpose of the matrix base. C types dates, date. D types flex, flat, make it item size and bytes, and D real shape size strides. All any arg max arg min methods test were true. Access file and others. Compressed conjunction comprot come some diagonal dot dumps fill flattened get a 1 get h flattened get I get t get fields item set max min new byte order non-zero partition prot ptp put ravel repeat reshape precise around search sorted set field set flex sort squeeze std sum swap access d type out dd off kind align offset site sorter values access d type view var transpose trace to string completely allies for to bytes 2 bytes to string 2 bytes to string to list to file 2 bytes and others matrix all matrix and here's false true false false true false all all 1 2 3 out axis any matrix arg max axis none out none so 4 5 6 7 arg max parameters numpy argmin index of the many values along x return the index of the first occurrence of the minimum value along this specified axis. If axis is none, the index is for the flattened matrix and d array argmin m matrix and d array argmin and d array matrices arg partition arrays partition arg sort s type copy of the array cast to a specific type d type order key casting unsafe subak true copy true kind access order none casting subak copy rt complex warning nodes and p array matrices others signal imac numpy scikit scipy scikit learn others byte swap in place to python map Swift, Ruby, others, np byte swap, np array view, new bytes order byte swap in place of view, choose, clip, compress, conjugate, copy to np array 001 flex c contiguous come some comprot come some diagonal offset axis offset return specified diagnosis offset diagonal offset compensировать a consideration of amount that diminishes or balances the effect of a contrary one, the amount of distance by which something is out of line. NumPy diagonal dot file dumps fill value flatten order c return a flattened copy of the matrix. All n elements of the matrix are placed into a single row. CFAK optional. C means to flatten in row major. C style order. F means to flatten in column major. Fortran style order. A means to flatten in columns major order if M is Fortran contiguous in memory row major order. Otherwise, key means to flatten M in the order the elements occur in the memory. The default is C. I. A copy of the matrix flattened to A matrix where N is number of elements and in the original matrix. Return a flattened array. Flat array examples get A non-red and the array nps array np matrix get a1 get other get h examples get I inv get t examples get field d type return item return item set insert scalar arguments arg scalar only in used in two arguments. The last arguments max ND array max access none out none nodes ND array max matrix ND array max max mean access D type out ND array mean ND array matrix mean ND array mean ND array mean matrix ND array numbers -9 new byte order new array non-zero partition kth access kind KIND order PARTITION partition argument partition ARG partition full sort prot ND array prot matrix prot standard array PTP put ravel flatten flat ravel repeat reshape resize shape ref check if false reference could count will not be checked, default is true value, system error resize examples resize round sorted set field D type offset non return C also get field set flex right align UIC UIC axis kind order sort arc sort lex sorted partition squeeze as example squeeze std numpy std np matrix sum np matrix swap access take 2 bytes order s order to file 2 list 2 bytes to list to string trace transpose trace return the sum along diagonals of the array refer to numpy trace for full documentation. See also numpy trace equivalent function transpose and the array t and the array reshape var view is used for two different types view d type some d type and the array subclass d type some d type the subclass d type trace back value error s matrix data d type mat matrix data interpreted as matrix opt indict g dictionary dictionary replaces ignored is if object is not a string or gdict is none ddict optional optional or array like out matrix to the array block a generalization of the function for nd block b mat blocked matrix following expression constructs block matrix matrix creation from nested sequence creation from a string from an array nested sequence memory mapped file arrays map flash numpy map file name d type numpy you byte mode r plus offset you byte non-order c file name d type mode offset shape order format open map data np arrange resize import os.path as path temp file and map flash mp map flex writable offset into map map flash characters array creating characters array core def characters array class numpy character array shape item size unicode offset buffer order strides t base c types date t d type flat imac item size and bytes and dim real shape size strides as type copy of the array cast to a specified type s type array s type arc sort copy count decode dump d type order casting subak copy tab size expand tabs and ends with suffix returns a boolean array with its true with string that self ends with suffix otherwise false dumps and encode fill find flatten get field index is al num is alpha is al num for each string are alphanumeric alphabetic characters decimal otherwise false is digits lowercase numeric is space true space string and characters false otherwise white space is title is upper item join l just return of the cell left justified left with the field char value index value mode order repeat replace reshape precise air find for each element compared sub is string where return the highest index air find return index air find it return index readjust justified air split air strip sorted self field self set flag sort split lines squeeze start with strip swap axis swap case title to list translate transpose upper view z fill s type str d type copy subak rt complex subordinate subak arc sort copy subak count decode dump subak dumps encode ends with expand tabs fill flatten find get field d type offset index is num is alpha is decimal is digit it is lower is numeric is space is title is upper is lower is item lower l just lower l strip non-zero put indexes values mod race put the rival return a flattened array repeat replace reshape char array char array resize char array refined char array r index for each element in self return the highest index in the string where substring sub is found, such as that sub is contained within. Okay, sorted set field numbers numpy sort numpy arc sort leg sort squeeze start with swap case take title to file format parameters subok iteration transpose translate to string transpose and the array reshape transpose view type view some d type d array and d array x view d type np int 8 16 z fill array item size unicode order record array formats names returns aligned format parsers argmax all methods all any argmax access out keep deems where all keep deems returns true elements of a evaluate to true arc partition arc sort s type byte swap clip compress conjugate copy come route come sum diagonal dot dumps fill max min prod new byte order sorted sum swap to file trace transpose trace return the sum along diagonal so the array return sum along diagonal so the array all any any array, numpy char array, numpy array, notes, item set, key th, numpy get array, get resize, get sorted, array, get array, get guitar, array, piano, numpy piano, squeeze swap axis with scissor, swap, to string, trace, transpose, and drat, reshape var, view noted, record, td type, real, strides, all, method, argmax, argmin, argsort, s type, clip, copy, fill, dumps, diagonal, sum, sum, scalar method in corresponding array, attribute, put, ptp prot, repeat, sum, swap, access, swap, record, argmin, argmax, s type, byte swap, choose, compress, dumps, scalar method identical to the corresponding array, attribute, mean, non-zero, put, repeat, search, take, trace, copy to string, byte swap, val in my iter, some code involving val, range, array, val in a 10, 26, 27 equals, and enumerate np array, index x, np enumerate, val numpy broadcast two shapes, formulas, index iters, nd and dim num iter, number of iteration, num number of iterations possessed by the broadcasted result, reset, masked arrays, ma, np, masked arrays, array, masked array, parameters, masked array, d-type, copies, subak, keep, mask, hard mask, fill, value, shrink, order, mask, d-type, copies, subak, and d-mean, keep, mask, hard mask, whether to use a hard mask or not. With a hard mask, masked values cannot be unmasked, default is false. Keep, mask, combines, shrink order, masked, s array, fix, invalid, masked, equal, masked, greater, equal, masked, inside, masked, invalid, masked, an array where invalid, masked, where values outside object not equal, less equal, d-type, le, as an array, and the array as any array, as any similar to as array, but conserves subclasses, as array, fix, invalid, copy, fill, value, notes, examples, masked, equal, masked, greater, masked, where greater, equal, inside, where, invalid, numpy, ma, numbers, and p, fill, value, import, numpy, ma, masked array, masked, less equal, import, numpy, ma, import, ma, masked, true, false, value, fill, masked object, copy, shrink, result, masked values, masked, and masked equal. 250 pages we have read, and also we should read here: array creation routines, array manipulation routines, binary operation, string operation, broadcasting, output type determination, use of internal buffers, error handling, casting rules, override, ufunc behavior, ufunc available function, the array interface, date, times and time details, linear algebra, input and output, indexing, routines, numpy specific help functions, functional programming, decorate, Fourier transform, floating point, error handling, mathematical functions with automatic domain, numpy math, numpy c type, sleep, dual, fft, line alg, numpy testing, random, mathlib, numpy API, setup, init, NumPy C code explanation, memory alignment, internal organization of NumPy errors, testing the NumPy I time maps, dive into the understanding CPU dispatching. Now the NumPy dispatcher works. Dive into the CPU dispatcher acknowledgement, bibliography optimization, build option for compilation, multidimensional array indexing, order issues, internal organization of NumPy arrays, memory alignment, NumPy C code explanation, C API deprecation, NumPy core libraries, general universal function API, ufunc API, array iterator, array API, data type API, system configuration, Python types and C structures, extra features in NumPy, these tutels, guitar, piano, cello, bassoon, requirements for SciPy packages, SciPy structure building, installable C libraries, conversion of src files, configure class models in NumPy, these utils. Okay, we'll open it. Performance related options, interoperability, debugging related difference from the runtime NumPy, MyPy plugins, typing, window function, statistics test, support statistics, sorting, set routines, random sampling, polynomials, paddling arrays, miscellaneous routines, matrix library, mathematical function, logic function, linear algebra, input and output indexing routines, NumPy specific help functions, functional programming, discrete Fourier transform, floating point error handling, mathematical function with automatic domain, optionally SciPy accelerated routines, data type routines, data type support functions, C-type foreign function interface, string operation, binary operation, array manipulation routines, array creation routines, ufunc available, function use of internal buffers. Okay, and last, these utils. All strings, all path, append path as list, blue text, cyan text, seek to wind 32, default config dict append dot join, filter source, generate config py, get build architecture, get cmd, get data files, get dependencies, get ext source files, get frame, get info, get everything, get language, get lib source files, get math libs, num build jobs, get numpy include tiers, get pkg info, get script files, gpaths, green text has cxx sources, has f sources, is local as cr key, dir is sequence, is string, min way, the 32 min rel path, and join rel path, resolve and point from path, quote args, red text terminal has colors, yellow cat text, core extension, C put info, C compiler, opt C compiler, core extension, exec command, log set verbosity, bosity, verbosity, wordness, verbosity, get info, get standard file, verbosity, vforce, verbosity command extension, verbosity, log set verbosity, compile, customize cmd, sys xx compiler, find executables, get version, object file names, show customization, compiler spawn, gan, lib options, new compiler, replace method, simple version match, compiler, C compiler compile, debug, macros, self sources, output dir, non macros include dirs, extra pre-args, extra post-args, non depends, parameters, output dir, sources, extra pre-args, extra post-args, extra pre and post arguments, whether or not to output debug symbols in or alongside the object files, debug, Python, NumPy Reference, similar numbers, magnitude dB and magnitude and numbers, scholars, Blackman window, and frequency response of Bartlett window, numbers, black math, PyTest, Blackman, NumPy, functions, release, pictures, iMac, graphs, iMac, book array, book equal, guitar array, piano array, scissors array, television array, screen array, display array, get screen, Friedman diaconics estimator, Starks, maximum of the Starks and FD estimators, H equals multiplication, skirt 24, P divided N, Rice, Starks, Scott, C also weights, Scott, FD, Doan, auto, bins, etc. Histogram, bin edges, return, raises, weights, mean, length, histogram, ok. Bueno, suerte mis amigos queridos, amigos y otras. Ahora they will learn a lot about NumPy mathematical functions. You are amazing, my dear engineers. Let's go programming and coding. You can do anything. Todo depende de ti, creo en ti, amor para ti. Hoy aprendimos mucho sobre las funciones matemáticas de NumPy. Sois increíbles. Sois increíbles, mis queridos ingenieros. Sois increíbles, mis queridos ingenieros. Sois increíbles, mis queridos ingenieros. Vamos a programar y codificación. Tú puedes hacer cualquier cosa. Buena suerte. Muchas gracias, mis amigos o amigas. Buena suerte.